You've been looking in the wrong place, chasing after people who promise you happiness, piling up achievements that only leave you feeling emptier, trying to fit into a world that doesn't understand your pain. And all the while, the one thing you truly needed was already inside you. That's it. No more excuses, no more running away. It's time to look within. For far too long, you've been made to believe that happiness is out there, found in a partner, in success, in recognition. But it's not. Because even when you have everything, something inside still feels broken. Today, I'm going to reveal the secret the Stoics have known for centuries: how to reach inner happiness, the kind that depends on no one and nothing. We're going to tear down the lies you've been told, and if you stick around, I promise you this: after this video, you won't need anyone else to feel at home within yourself. But before we begin, I just want you to think about this. How many times have you smiled while something inside you was silently screaming? That ends today. Today, you learn how to be happy on your own. If you find value in these videos, hit subscribe and write in the comments, "I'm tired of pretending." Now take a deep breath, because what's coming will completely shift your mindset. Let's begin. Lesson 1. Stop looking outside for what you already have within. Picture an emperor who has everything you think you're missing: absolute power, unlimited wealth, entire armies awaiting his command. Marcus Aurelius could have spent every night celebrating victories, surrounded by luxuries we can't even imagine. But he didn't. Every night, he sat alone with a journal, writing to understand himself. Like someone who knows that the real battle isn't on the battlefield, but inside his own mind. Isn't that strange? A man who has it all, spending the last hours of his day monitoring his thoughts, questioning himself, trying to hold on to his inner peace, while the outside world keeps insisting he already has it. If someone like him knew the real game was internal, why do you still believe it's going to be any different in your case? Why do you keep thinking that when you finally get that one missing thing, then you'll finally be at peace? Let's be brutally honest for a moment. How many times have you thought, "When I lose those 5 kilos, I'll feel good"? How many times have you said, "Once I get that job, everything will get better"? How many nights have you fallen asleep thinking, "When someone truly chooses me, then I'll stop feeling this emptiness"? And then it happens. You lose the weight, you get the job, someone chooses you, and for a moment, sure, you feel good. But that feeling melts away like ice cream in the sun. A few weeks, maybe a few months if you're lucky, and then it comes back. That same emptiness, that same restlessness. And your mind is already looking for the next goal, the next person, the next upgraded version of yourself that will finally give you what you're looking for. Your brain works like that. It adapts. It's like a treadmill that never stops. Every new achievement becomes your new normal, and then you need more. Always more. The Stoics saw this crystal clear 2,000 years ago. They watched people chase after wealth, honors, pleasures, as if those were the keys to happiness. And time again, they saw the same pattern. Getting those things didn't solve anything. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that should be tattooed on the forehead of anyone searching for peace outside. The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts, not on your achievements, not on your bank account, not on how many people applaud you, on your thoughts. But of course, that's uncomfortable to accept, because if happiness depends on your thoughts, then you can't blame anyone else. You can't keep saying, "It's my family, it's my partner, it's my job." You have to look inward, and that's where the problem begins. Most of us avoid that inner gaze like our life depends on it. Think about your day yesterday. The day ends. You get into bed. You've done 1,000 things. You've been productive. You've replied to messages. You've fulfilled your duties. But there's something off, a kind of emptiness you can't even name. You pick up your phone almost by reflex. You scroll. You see perfect lives that don't actually exist. You buy something you don't need. You message someone hoping they'll fill the void. And it works, for 5 minutes. But as soon as the stimulus ends, the emptiness comes back, even bigger. Do you know what's really going on, my friend? It's not that you lack stimulation. You lack a relationship with yourself. You've become a stranger to your own being. You spend more time consuming content about others than asking yourself what the hell is going on inside you. Mo Gaudet, a guy who worked at Google and had everything by modern standards, lost his son and had to rebuild his understanding of happiness from the ground up. He reached a conclusion the Stoics already knew. Nothing external can fix an internal void if your mind doesn't change first. You can fill your life with things, people, experiences, but if there's a hole inside, it's still going to be there. Epictetus was a slave. He had literally none of the things the world considers valuable. No physical freedom, no property, no status. And yet, he developed a philosophy based on something revolutionary. The one thing no one can take from you is how you interpret your life. They could chain him, they could beat him, they could strip him of everything, but they couldn't get inside his mind and decide for him how to think about what was happening. That was his strength, his true freedom. Meanwhile, you and I, with all our freedom, with all our options, chain ourselves. We hand over the control of our peace to things that change every 5 minutes. A message that may or may not arrive. A comment on social media. Someone's opinion who doesn't even know your full story. We've turned the antenna of our happiness outward, hoping to catch a signal that will never come through clearly. Because the signal isn't out there. It never was. Seneca put it another way. He talked about inner self-sufficiency, not as something cold or selfish, but as the ability to feel whole without constantly needing the outside world to validate you. Imagine him talking to a friend who's desperate because the Senate doesn't recognize his work. Seneca would say, "What does it matter what they think if you know you did the right thing? Are you really going to hand over your peace to people who aren't even truly paying attention to what you do?" For Seneca, the mind was like an instrument that had to be tuned. It wasn't about filling it with more and more stuff. It was about tuning it so it could sound good on its own. So what does it actually mean to look within without sounding like some cheap self-help cliche? It means very concrete things, my friend. It means learning to be in silence without needing to fill that silence with constant noise. Turning off your phone. Sitting down for 5 minutes doing nothing. No podcast, no music, nothing. And watching what happens in your head when there are no distractions. At first, it's uncomfortable. Your mind resists. It brings up to-dos, worries, things you haven't dealt with. But if you stay with it, something starts to settle. A kind of clarity that never shows up when you're constantly overstimulated. It means asking yourself what you really think of yourself when no one else is looking. When there's no audience, no likes. When it's just you, face to face with you. Do you treat yourself well? Do you speak to yourself with respect? Or do you tear yourself down with a level of cruelty you'd never apply to anyone else? Most of us are our own worst enemy. We talk to ourselves like we're worthless, and then we're surprised we feel so empty. And it means looking at what you already have today that 5 years ago you would have begged to have. That home you live in. That job you now take for granted. That person by your side. That body that works. That lets you move, breathe, exist. Your mind is wired for survival. It's programmed to look for problems, to see what's missing. But we're not running from lions anymore. That system now works against you, making you feel like it's never enough. Stoicism is like training, retraining your perception, teaching your brain to see what is there, not just what's lacking. You could do something simple, a Stoic inventory. Ask yourself, if I couldn't add anything new to my life for 1 full year, what inner resources would I need to develop in order to feel at peace? Patience, gratitude, the ability to be alone without feeling abandoned. The answer will show you exactly where you're letting yourself down. Or you could do what Marcus Aurelius did. At the end of the day, write 1 sentence, just one. Answering this, what did I have today that I once dreamed of and now I don't even notice? It could be something big or small, a hot cup of coffee, a comfortable bed, someone asking how you're doing. This isn't toxic positivity. It's about training your attention to stop obsessing over what's missing, and every time that thought creeps in, when I have this, I'll be happy. Change the question. Don't ask when you'll have it. Ask yourself, what part of that happiness could I start building now, even without having it yet? If you believe you'll be happy once you have a partner, ask yourself what part of that happiness depends on feeling seen, valued, heard, and start giving that to yourself. See yourself, value yourself, listen to yourself, not as a substitute for caring relationships, but as the foundation for building healthy ones. Because as long as you keep looking outside, you'll stay tied. Tied to what others do or don't do. Tied to variables you can't control. Tied to a world that's always changing and will never give you the stability you're craving. And here's where the next problem begins. When you can't find that happiness within, you start asking others to give it to you. You ask them to validate you, to complete you, to rescue you from yourself. And that, my friend, is exactly where you start to lose your power. Lesson 2. Don't expect from others what you should be giving yourself. I hate to be the one to say it, but the number one mistake you're making is expecting someone to rescue you in the same way you abandon yourself every single day. I know, it hurts to hear, but it's true. You spend weeks, months, even years waiting for your partner to say those exact words you need to hear, for your boss to finally recognize your effort, for your parents to give you the approval that never came. And while you wait, you treat yourself like you're worth nothing. You speak to yourself with contempt. You demand perfection. You deny yourself rest. You beat yourself up over every mistake. And then you're surprised to feel empty. Seneca talked about the self-sufficiency of the wise, not as someone cold or unfeeling, but as someone who doesn't have to sell their dignity just for a bit of company. The Stoic sage doesn't wait around for validation to know their worth. They already know it. They know it because they've done the inner work of treating themselves fairly, of giving themselves what they deserve, of not trading their self-respect at the altar of someone else's approval. But we do it all the time. We hand over our power without even noticing. You get dressed up carefully. You go out. And if no one says anything nice, your day falls apart. You didn't enjoy the process of getting ready. You didn't feel good for yourself. Your whole sense of worth depended on whether someone else decided to open their mouth and validate you. You post something on social media, not just anything, something that matters to you. And for hours you're checking, refreshing, watching, counting, waiting for specific names to show up in the likes. And if they don't, you feel that sting, that tiny ache of rejection, as if your value rises or falls with someone else's thumb on a screen. Epictetus would have seen this as the perfect definition of modern slavery, letting someone else's thumb on a screen decide whether or not you feel valuable today. He, who was an actual slave, who knew what it was like to have no physical freedom, understood something we've forgotten. If your sense of peace depends on someone else, you've handed them your freedom. You've given your calm to someone who doesn't even know they have that power, and who can take it away at any moment. Let me tell you something that might sound familiar. I knew a girl who always ended up with people who treated her poorly. Not terribly, just badly enough to make her feel unseen. Relationships where she gave everything and got crumbs in return, where she waited for messages that never came, where she apologized for things she didn't even do. One day, she heard a quote from the Stoics and something clicked. It was simple. No one can give you what you deny yourself. She realized she had been waiting for others to show her the respect she wasn't giving herself. She demanded perfection. She spoke to herself cruelly. She settled for less than she deserved because deep down she believed that's all she could hope for. Sound familiar? Because it's what most of us do. We live in this massive contradiction. We want to be loved well, but we treat ourselves terribly. We want respect, but we talk to ourselves like we're worthless. We want patience, but we beat ourselves up over every mistake. And then we wonder why we keep attracting relationships that mirror exactly how we treat ourselves. Marcus Aurelius dealt with this every day. He was emperor. He had more power than any of us will ever have. And yet, he faced constant criticism. People questioning his decisions, political enemies attacking him, rumors, betrayal, disloyalty. He could have spent his whole life trying to please everyone, trying to make every senator, every general, every citizen happy. But he didn't. Every night he reminded himself of one essential thing. The goal was not to please everyone. It was to live by his principles, to do what he believed was right, and then let go. Let people think what they would, because if he handed over his peace to others' opinions, he'd never have peace at all. And here's the key, my friend. This isn't about turning cold. It's not about not caring about anyone. It's about understanding something that modern psychology has confirmed in study after study. Your level of self-compassion and self-esteem predicts the kind of relationships you choose. If you feel unworthy, you'll tolerate emotional scraps. You'll accept treatment you'd never allow if you were clear on your worth. Your mind believes that's all you deserve, and it acts accordingly. The Stoics spoke of inner dignity, not empty pride, not thinking you're better than anyone else, but recognizing that your value is not up for negotiation, that there are things you simply won't accept because doing so would mean betraying yourself. Seneca used to say that the wise don't sell their peace for companionship. They'd rather be alone than poorly accompanied. They prefer silence over falseness. They choose solitude over humiliation disguised as love. Imagine you've spent years waiting for your family to acknowledge what you do. Every achievement you share is met with silence or indifference. Every mistake is met with immediate criticism. It hurts. Of course it does. But you've been in that cycle for years, waiting, trying to prove yourself, chasing validation that never comes. Now imagine you change just one thing: how you talk to yourself when something goes well or when you mess up. You complete a project. It goes well. And instead of waiting for someone to notice, you notice. You say to yourself, "That was solid. I worked hard. It was worth it." No exaggeration, no inflated ego, just recognition. You make a mistake. And instead of tearing yourself apart for days, you speak to yourself like you would to a friend who made the same mistake. Okay, that didn't go how I wanted. What can I learn? What will I do differently next time? That small shift changes everything, because once you start giving yourself recognition, rest, kindness, something changes. You don't need to chase anyone, begging for attention. You won't tolerate being treated like an option when you treat yourself like a priority. You won't accept relationships where you have to beg for the bare minimum. The Stoics practiced this. They praised themselves internally when they acted with virtue. They didn't wait for the world to applaud them. Their judgment came from within. You could start with something simple. Every time it hurts that someone isn't giving you something, attention, affection, validation, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, am I giving that to myself? If the answer is no, there's your sign. That doesn't mean the other person has no responsibility. It means there's something you need to start building within. Something you've been begging for on the outside when you could have been cultivating it from the inside. Or you could try a tiny self-respect ritual, inspired by how the Stoics spoke to themselves. At the end of the day, write down one thing you did well, even if it's small, even if it seems trivial. You showed up on time, you were honest in a hard conversation, you finally finished that task you kept putting off. Write it down and read it out loud. Yes, out loud. Because you need to hear your own voice saying good things about you, not as cheap self-help, but as an act of justice toward yourself. If you were your friend, would you talk to them the way you talk to yourself? And then comes the uncomfortable part, setting a minimum. 3 things you will no longer compromise on: basic respect, honesty, consistency between words and actions, whatever they are. But 3 non-negotiables that, if you allow them to be broken, you are betraying yourself. This isn't about becoming hard or closed off. It's about no longer accepting situations where you sell your dignity for a little company. Seneca was clear on this. The wise are not without affection. They just don't give up their peace for nothing. And when you start giving yourself what you've been waiting to get from others, something interesting happens. You no longer feel desperate for someone to come save you. You still want connection, of course. You still need love, friendship, community, but it comes from a different place. From strength, not from emptiness. From choice, not from need. So now tell me, with total honesty, what is that one thing you've been waiting years for someone else to give you, that today you finally choose to start giving yourself? Answer it in the comments. It'll change you more than you think. Lesson 3. Learn to be with yourself without needing distractions. Picture this. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men of his time, isn't in a banquet hall or surrounded by advisors or giving commands. He's alone. A single oil lamp barely lights his desk. Outside, the entire empire breathes under his watch, but he's not thinking about that. He's writing, not for others, but for himself. He observes his mind like someone watching a calm sea before a storm. He notes his fears, his desires, his impulses. He asks why he feels what he feels, what part of him he needs to master, what part he needs to let go of. In that quiet, so personal, so intimate, he's training a skill that almost no one trains today. The ability to sit with yourself without running away. And as he scratches words into parchment, he makes one thing clear. Something we keep forgetting centuries later. Solitude isn't punishment. It's a mirror. Now be honest. When was the last time you spent a few minutes with yourself without a screen in front of you? When was the last time you didn't reach for music, videos, messages, podcasts, or noise to cover up that tiny, uncomfortable silence that appears when you're alone? We live in an age where being with yourself feels like an extreme sport. The moment the mind is left without stimulation, it starts to unsettle us. It confronts us with things we'd rather ignore. Thoughts we dodge, emotions we delay, decisions we avoid out of fear. Epictetus warned us, you can't escape yourself no matter how far you travel. And yet that's exactly what we avoid, looking ourselves in the eye. Think of this common moment. You get home at night. It's been a long, tense day filled with little demands stacking up in your head. You open the door, drop your keys, and the first thing you do is seek distraction. TV on in the background, phone in hand, social media, noise, something, anything. Because if you stay still for even a second, that weird emptiness shows up, that strange sensation you don't know how to name. And right there, where we assume discomfort is a red flag, the Stoics saw an invitation, a doorway, an opportunity to know yourself. Marcus Aurelius practiced it daily, and you can too. For them, silence wasn't a void to be filled, it was a space to be inhabited. And here's the curious part. When you actually start listening to yourself, letting your thoughts appear without forcing them, without running, without judging, you begin to notice something you hadn't seen before. That inside you, there's a voice that's always been there, just waiting for you to finally pay attention. That clarity doesn't show up when you're distracted. It comes when you dare to turn everything off. That peace doesn't arrive when the world quiets down, but when you do, inside. Ali Abdaal, a creator with millions of followers, tried a dopamine detox. It sounds simple. One day with no screens, no social media, no constant stimulation, and he documented it. What shocked him most wasn't boredom, it was fear. Fear of being left alone with his own mind. Fear of what might show up when all the layers of noise were stripped away. And he's not alone. Matt D'Avella spoke about the same thing. Successful, productive people, people who seem to have their lives together, admitting they're terrified of being alone with themselves. Because in that silence, the uncomfortable questions show up. The doubts, the things you've been avoiding through Netflix, Instagram, and shallow conversations. Epictetus said something brutal but true. No man is free who is not master of himself. And you can't master what you're too afraid to look at. You spend all day running from yourself. Your mind makes you uncomfortable. Your thoughts overwhelm you. So you look for anything to escape. A message, a video, a chat, anything. But the problem doesn't go away. It just gets delayed. And every time you delay it, it grows bigger. Imagine Epictetus living today. He's sitting in a modern cafe. He looks around. Everyone has headphones on. Everyone's glued to a screen. No one is truly present. He puts his phone face down. He breathes, he observes. He has a silent conversation with himself. People look at him funny. Some think he's waiting for someone. Others assume he's bored. No one realizes he's simply comfortable. Comfortable with his own company. Comfortable in that silence that everyone else finds unbearable. Your mind is like a room with an echo. If you always fill it with noise, clutter, and constant visitors, you'll never hear the true echo. You'll never hear your own voice. The Stoics saw that echo as the space where the real you reveals itself, not the version you post online, not the mask you wear at work, the real version, the one that shows up when no one's watching. And that version, my friend, is the one you'll spend your entire life with. You'd better learn to get along with it. Modern science confirms what the Stoics practiced 2,000 years ago. The University of Rochester studied solitary reflection and found that people who regularly spend time alone, without distractions, improve their emotional regulation. They become less impulsive. They make better decisions. Because when you're constantly stimulated, your brain runs on autopilot. It reacts. It doesn't process. It doesn't think. It just consumes, then moves on to the next thing. But when you force yourself to sit in silence, something shifts. At first, it's uncomfortable. Your mind throws everything at you, the junk you've been ignoring, to-dos, worries, conversations left unresolved, decisions avoided. It's like opening a closet you haven't checked in years. Everything falls out. But if you stay there, if you don't reach for your phone, you start to organize. You start to see clearly. And that clarity is pure gold. The problem isn't solitude. The problem is our relationship with solitude. We've equated being alone with being broken. If you have no plans, if you're not with someone, if you're not doing something productive or entertaining, you feel like you're wasting time, like something's wrong with you. But the Stoics saw it the other way around. They saw solitude as a gift, as the space where you could be brutally honest with yourself, where you didn't have to perform, where you could reflect on your day, your decisions, your emotions, without anyone else's noise. Marcus Aurelius practiced this even in the middle of battle. He called it inner retreat. He didn't need to run to a mountain. He could find that space of active silence wherever he was. Active silence, not awkward silence. Silence that serves, that clarifies, that brings you back to yourself when the world pulls you in every direction. Think about something as simple as going to the bathroom. You go and you bring your phone, even if it's just for 30 seconds. You can't be alone with yourself for half a minute. You check Instagram, reply to a message, read the news, anything but being present. Because that tiny silence reminds you of all the unresolved things, the emotions you haven't processed, the decisions you're still dodging. What if you started small? You don't have to disappear for a week to meditate in a cave. Start with 5 minutes. 5 minutes a day where you turn everything off. No relaxing music, no guided meditation, nothing. Just you, sitting, breathing, letting your mind do what it needs to do. At first, it'll scream, it'll throw 1,000 thoughts at you. To-dos, anxieties, discomfort. Let them come. Don't judge them, just observe. Like Marcus Aurelius observed his own thoughts without attaching to them. You could do what he did before bed. A short moment of introspection. Nothing complicated, nothing mystical. Just review your day. What did you do well? What could you improve? How did you feel? What moved you? What held you back? Write it down if you want, or just think about it. But take that moment to be present with yourself, to end the day consciously, not numbed by the last episode you watched without really paying attention. And here's what you'll discover. When you learn to be with yourself, other people stop feeling like a need and start feeling like a gift. You no longer seek company to escape yourself. You choose company because you genuinely want to connect. Not because you're afraid of the silence, not because you can't stand your own mind, but because you're fine with you. And from there, you can be fine with others. Seneca spoke about this. He said the wise enjoy solitude because they've learned to be good company for themselves. It's not that they don't want people around, it's that they don't need them to be at peace. And that kind of independence, that ability to feel whole without filling every second with stimulation, is one of the deepest forms of freedom. Because when you stop running from yourself, everything changes. Your relationships improve because you're not asking others to entertain you or complete you. Your decisions improve because you create space to think instead of just reacting. Your inner peace grows because it's no longer under constant threat from the absence of outside noise. You become grounded, steady, not because everything's perfect, but because you've learned how to be with yourself in both the resolved and the broken parts. The Stoics made time for those brief retreats, not to escape the world, but to return to it with clarity, with renewed energy, with perspective, because they knew that if you don't stop to process, if you don't make space for silence, the noise of the world will drown you. You become reactive. You live off external stimuli, and you lose touch with what really matters, with your values, your priorities, yourself. So do it. Start today. Turn your phone off during dinner. Don't play music while you cook. Walk without headphones. Sit for 5 minutes doing absolutely nothing. Nothing productive, nothing entertaining. Just be. With yourself, with your breath, with your thoughts. And observe what happens. At first, it'll feel eternal, uncomfortable, even boring. But give it time. Because when you learn to be with yourself without needing distractions, something fundamental shifts. You stop searching outside for what can only be found within. And that, my friend, is the beginning of true inner freedom. But there's another step just as important: choosing where you place your energy. Lesson 4. Focus only on what's in your hands. How many times have you lost an entire day over something you couldn't change? Think about it. Your boss made a dumb decision. Your partner said something that got under your skin. Someone cut you off in traffic. The weather ruined your plans. And there you were, replaying it over and over, venting to 5 different people about how unfair it was, imagining what you should have said, obsessing over how things should have gone. And meanwhile, your day was gone, your energy gone, your peace gone. All because of something that was never in your control to begin with. Epictetus said it plainly: freedom begins when you decide what deserves your energy. And if it's not in your hands, it doesn't deserve it. Doesn't matter how unfair it is. Doesn't matter how frustrating. Doesn't matter how badly you wish it were different. If you can't change it, it doesn't deserve another second of your attention. It sounds harsh, even cold. But it's one of the most liberating truths you'll ever hear. Now picture this. You're stuck in traffic. Not moving. You've been staring at the same red light for 20 minutes. You start to get angry. You hit the steering wheel, you curse, you complain, you yell at the car in front like they can hear you. And the traffic, it doesn't budge. Not a single inch faster because you're losing it. But you changed. Your blood pressure's up, your mood is wrecked, you show up to your destination exhausted, irritated, and with a headache. All because of something you never had any control over. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this during military campaigns. Picture him in a Roman encampment. It's cold, it's raining. His soldiers are exhausted, supplies are delayed. He could spend the whole day complaining about the weather, logistics, or Senate decisions. But he doesn't. He asks himself something simple. Is this in my hands to change? If the answer is no, he lets it go. If the answer is yes, he acts. That's it. No drama, no pointless frustration. Now picture Marcus Aurelius in a modern airport. His flight's delayed by 3 hours. He looks around. People are losing their minds, yelling at staff who aren't at fault, calling everyone they know to vent. Refreshing the app every 30 seconds like that will change anything. Marcus gives a quiet chuckle. He pulls out a notebook, starts writing. Because he already asked the only question that matters. Can I control this delay? No. Can I control how I go through this moment? Yes. That's all he needs, but your brain doesn't naturally work like that. From an evolutionary standpoint, your mind is wired to try and control as much as possible. It's a survival mechanism. Control more, reduce threats, anticipate everything, avoid danger. It worked great when we were dodging predators in the wild. But now, that same system is burning us out. You try to control things that have never been in your hands: the weather, other people's opinions, their decisions, the past, the future. And every failed attempt adds more anxiety, more frustration, more exhaustion. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control. Sounds academic, but it's brutally practical. Some things are in your hands: your actions, your reactions, your decisions, your effort, your attitude. And some things aren't. Other people's actions, results, external circumstances, the past, the distant future. If you waste your energy on what's not in your hands, you lose. It's that simple. This isn't abstract philosophy, it's emotional survival. Let me tell you a powerful example, just to show you it's possible. Courtney Dauwalter runs ultramarathons, 100 kilometers, 160 kilometers, insane distances. And her mindset? Totally stoic. When asked how she stays calm through so much pain, she says something simple: smile through the pain. Not because the pain disappears, but because her attitude toward it is in her hands. She can't control the heat, the terrain, or how her body feels at mile 80. But she can control whether she complains endlessly or chooses to face it with dignity. And that one choice changes everything. Now imagine applying that to your life. Not in extreme races, just in your everyday moments. A coworker steals your idea. You could spend weeks bitter, telling everyone how unfair it was, plotting revenge, wrecking your peace. Or you could ask the Stoic question: can I change the fact that he did it? No. Can I control how I respond? Yes. You can document your work more carefully. You can speak up if needed. You can learn and move on, but ruminating, complaining, stewing in anger, that only destroys you. It doesn't touch him. Your partner lets you down. You expected something and it didn't happen. You can spend days obsessing over why they didn't do what you hoped. Or you can reframe it. Can I control how someone else behaves? No. Can I control how I express my needs? Yes. Can I choose what I accept or not in a relationship? Yes. That's your power. Not changing others, but choosing what you do with what's in front of you. There's a study from the University of Alberta about perceived control. They found that people who try to control things outside their reach experience 3 times the mental fatigue of those who focus only on what they can control. 3 times. That's not minor. Your exhaustion doesn't just come from doing too much. It comes from fighting battles you were never meant to win. So how do you train this? Start by changing your inner script. Every time something doesn't go your way, your instinct might be to ask, why did this happen? That question leads nowhere. It traps you in victim mode. Replace it with, what can I do now? That question brings you back into your power. It cuts the drama. It moves you into action. You're feeling anxious about something coming up. A test, a meeting, a difficult conversation. Instead of spinning out over every possible scenario, mentally break the situation down. No need for a chart. Just ask, what part of this is in my hands? Studying is in your hands. Preparing is in your hands. Your attitude is in your hands. The exact questions they'll ask? No. How they'll respond? No. The final result? Also no. So put your energy where your power is, and let the rest go. Every situation becomes a test. Not like a school exam, but a workout. Is this in my hands? If yes, act. If no, release. And at first, you'll mess it up. You'll still get caught up in things you can't control. You'll still waste hours ruminating. But every time you catch yourself and correct course, you're training. You're building that stoic muscle that lets you walk through life a little lighter. Seneca said that most of our suffering is self-inflicted, not because bad things don't happen, but because we add unnecessary layers of suffering to what already happened. Something goes wrong. That hurts. But then you pile on. This shouldn't have happened. It's unfair. Why me? What will people think? What if this ruins everything? And every added layer adds more weight, more pain. The Stoics learn to stay with the inevitable pain and drop everything else. Because when you choose where to put your energy, life becomes lighter. Not because everything works out, not because things suddenly go your way, but because you stop carrying what was never yours to carry. You stop holding the weight of the weather, other people's opinions, the past, the far-off future, other people's choices. You carry only what's yours, your actions, your attitude, your effort, your response. And trust me, that's already more than enough. No need to carry anything else. Lesson 5. Swap why for what for. Some days something breaks without warning. A message doesn't come. A plan gets canceled. A reply hits you in a way you didn't expect. And in that uncomfortable pause where you don't know what to do with what you're feeling, Marcus Aurelius would have looked up and said, "Look closely. There's meaning here. You can't see it yet, but it's there. It always is." The problem is, your first instinct is never that. Your first instinct is usually, why me? Why now? Why just when things were starting to go well? And that question, even though it sounds logical, is a trap. It pulls you into a loop with no exit. It turns you into a victim of something that's already happened and can't be changed. It keeps your gaze locked on the past, looking for blame, looking for explanations that won't change a thing. Picture this. You're driving to an important interview. You've prepared everything. You left with plenty of time. But suddenly, traffic, complete standstill, minutes pass. Your anxiety rises. You start sweating, swearing, hitting the wheel. Why today? Why now? Why me? And while you're asking those questions, your body tenses up, your mind clouds over, and you show up to the interview wrecked, if you even make it. Now imagine the same scene, but with a different question. Same traffic, but this time, you breathe. You ask yourself, what is this for? Not in a fluffy, spiritual, everything happens for a reason kind of way, but something more practical. What can I do with this? You call. Let them know you'll be late. You use the time to mentally review your key points. You breathe intentionally to calm yourself. And when you arrive, yes, you're late, but you're collected. The situation didn't change, but your experience of it did. That small shift from why to what for changes everything. Why keeps you stuck in the problem. What for moves you toward the solution. Why makes you a victim. What for makes you the protagonist. Why stares at the past. What for looks to the present for opportunities. Be honest, my friend. How many times have you shrunk when life hit hard, thinking, of course, it had to happen to me? How many times have you let one disappointment convince you you didn't deserve more? How many times have you turned a setback into a life sentence on your self-worth? Because that's what why does. It traps you in the story that life is against you, that you're cursed, that nothing good ever lasts. But what for does something else. It gives you back control. It takes you out of victim mode and places you back in the driver's seat. Because even if you can't control what happened, you can control what you do with it. And that is where your real power lives. Think of a flashlight in a tunnel. You can point it backward and keep staring at the darkness you've already walked through. Or you can point it forward and look for the exit. Both are valid, but only one moves you, only one gives you light where you actually need it. Why looks backward. What for looks ahead. Seneca would have smiled at this, because to him, this was the interesting part. Not what happened, but what you do with what happened. He once wrote something brutal. The greatest misfortune is to suffer in advance. But we also suffer backwards. We suffer by reliving what already hurt, by digging for reasons that change nothing, by asking why, when that question only pulls us deeper into the mud. So how do you train this? How do you shift a question that's become second nature? Start by naming what hurts, out loud if you need to. This hurts because I expected something different. This frustrates me because it feels unfair. When you name it, you pull it out of the emotional fog where everything feels tangled. You make it clear. And once it's clear, you can start to reinterpret it. Then pause, literally. 1 second of awareness before reacting. That 1 second can change the entire direction of your thinking. Because in that moment you can choose, do I stay stuck in why, or do I shift to what for? Do I spiral or do I seek meaning? The opportunity isn't always obvious. Sometimes it takes time to reveal itself. Sometimes the what for of something painful doesn't make sense for months or even years. But if you train your mind to look through that lens, you start living differently. You stop seeing setbacks as punishments and start seeing them as training. What would change in your life if you treated every problem as training instead of punishment? What if, instead of asking why bad things happen to you, you started asking what you're meant to build from them? Not from resignation, not from passive acceptance, from strength, from the ability to draw something useful even from pain. My neighbor Ivan lost his job during the pandemic. He was an engineer, stable, had long-term plans. And overnight, it was all gone. Of course he froze at first. He asked himself all the same dead-end questions as why me? Why now? Why just when things were starting to look up? What did I do wrong? Why is life taking away what I worked so hard for? And the more he repeated those questions, the more stuck he felt. It was like watching everything he built slip through his fingers, and all he could do was watch. But one morning, after weeks of feeling lost, he changed the question. Almost by accident, he told me, I woke up and thought, what is this really for? What is this emptiness supposed to teach me? What is this broken season asking of me? And that question moved him. It pulled him out of the spiral. It made him think about what he'd always wanted to try, but never had time for. He started researching, learning, trying new things. He didn't search for blame. He searched for possibility. And that is where everything changed. Today he runs a small artisan business that not only supports him, it gives jobs to others in the neighborhood. And it wasn't luck. It wasn't magic. It was that mental shift, that decision to stop asking, why are they taking this from me? And start asking, what can I build from this now? The same thing Marcus Aurelius would have said. The obstacle doesn't block the path. It becomes the path. Ivan didn't change his life with quick fixes. He changed it when he changed his question. And you can too. Marcus Aurelius did this every night. He reviewed his day, not to judge himself, not to beat himself up, but to find meaning in what hurt, to look for the lesson in the discomfort, to train his mind to see opportunity where others only saw setbacks. And you can do the same. At the end of the day, instead of replaying everything that went wrong, ask yourself, what was this for? What did I learn? What can I do differently tomorrow? You won't always get a clear answer. Sometimes there just isn't one, yet. But the act of searching for it, the act of changing the question, already shifts your direction. It already pulls you out of the swamp of self-pity. It already puts the power back in your hands. Because why leaves you waiting for answers that might never come. What for puts you into motion, even when you don't have all the answers yet. Why makes life feel like something that happens to you. What for reminds you that life is something you move through, with your decisions. And yes, it still hurts. Changing the question doesn't erase the pain. It doesn't make the hard stuff easy, but it completely transforms how you go through that pain. It gives it meaning. It strengthens you instead of breaking you. It teaches you instead of destroying you. Maybe the what for of your pain is still forming. Maybe you can't see it yet. Maybe it'll take months to make sense, but don't be fooled. It's there. There's always something you can extract. There's always a way to use what hurts to build something stronger. And that skill, that ability to turn why into what for, is one of the most powerful tools you can develop. But there's one more tool just as powerful. Learning to turn your mind into a place you actually want to live in. Let me leave you with something, my friend. If you're listening to this and there's something in your life that you still don't understand, leave a comment saying, I'm looking for my what for. Just writing that will place you in a different mindset, the mindset of someone who stops blaming and starts building. Lesson 6. Make your mind a place you actually want to be. Seneca said it without sugarcoating. It's not the one who has little who is poor, but the one who always wants more. So let me ask you this. How poor are you making yourself each day by what you allow into your mind? Because your mind is not a public dumpster where anyone can throw their trash, but you treat it like it is. You let everything in, opinions from people you don't even know, news that only fuels your anxiety, comparisons that make you feel like you're never enough, empty content, toxic conversations, thought loops that slowly tear you down. And then you wonder why you feel so bad, why your mind feels like a place you don't want to be, why you'd rather stay distracted than be present with yourself. It's because you've let it become a polluted space, and no one wants to live in a space that's polluted. Elise Buch, a Danish creator, shared something simple but powerful. She spent months battling anxiety. Her physical space was a mess, clothes everywhere, dishes piled up, papers scattered. And one day she realized something. Her outer space mirrored her inner space. So she started cleaning, slowly, without pressure, one surface at a time. And as she tidied her room, she began to tidy her mind. It wasn't magic. It was awareness. A realization that what surrounds you directly shapes how you feel. Your mind works the same way. If you fill it with garbage, it's going to feel like a landfill. If you fill it with non-stop noise, there will never be peace. If you let any thought in without a filter, you're going to live in chaos. But if you start setting boundaries, if you begin to choose what gets in and what doesn't, everything changes. Imagine your mind like a fish tank. If the water is murky, the fish doesn't know whether what it sees is a threat or a beam of light. It swims nervously, scared, reacting to shadows. But if you change the water, if you clean it, suddenly everything becomes clear. The fish calms down. It can actually see what's there. Your mind is no different. When it's full of toxic thoughts, junk info, and constant noise, you can't see clearly. Everything feels like a threat. Everything triggers anxiety. But when you clean it, when you start filtering, it all begins to clear up. Marcus Aurelius wrote every night, and part of what he wrote was a review of what he had let into his mind that day. What thoughts, what emotions, what reactions. And he would ask himself, did this serve me? Did this make me better, or did it just add noise? He didn't do it to shame himself. He did it to train his attention, to become the guardian of his own mind. Because that's what you need to be, a guardian. You can't control everything that tries to enter, but you can choose what you let stay. You can create filters. You can say, this doesn't get in, this doesn't help me, this only pollutes me. Lisa Feldman Barrett, a neuroscientist, discovered something fascinating. Your brain doesn't just react to emotions, it builds them, literally creates them based on the information it receives. If you're feeding it garbage all day, fear-based headlines, toxic content, endless comparisons, your brain will build matching emotions, anxiety, insecurity, fear. Not because life is objectively that bad, but because that's the input you're giving it. But if you change your mental diet, if you start filtering what you consume, your brain starts building different emotions. More stability, more clarity, more peace. This isn't toxic positivity. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about being selective. About understanding that your attention is your most valuable resource, and you can't just hand it over to anyone or anything. There was an anonymous Japanese programmer who shared on Reddit how he got out of a mild depression. He didn't do anything heroic. He just started to reorganize his mental space with tiny habits. He stopped consuming certain things. He started being mindful about others. He realized his mind was like an apartment, and if he didn't take care of it, it would become unlivable. That simple. If your mind were a house, who has a copy of the keys? How many people come and go without permission? How many outside thoughts do you let settle in there like they belong? That person who criticized you 3 years ago. That comment from a stranger online. That comparison to lives that aren't even real. All living rent-free in your head. taking up space, creating noise. Seneca told Lucilius that reviewing your thoughts is like reviewing your finances. You need to know what's coming in and what's going out. You need to see where you're losing, where your energy is being drained, and then make adjustments. Not from guilt, but from responsibility. From the understanding that no one else is going to take care of your mind for you. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that doesn't get quoted enough. The mind adapts to whatever it's trained in. If you train it in chaos, it gets used to chaos. If you train it in peace, it gets used to peace. Your mind isn't fixed. It's shaped daily by the choices you make about what you allow in. So how do you start? With micro-mental diets. 1 hour a day with no unnecessary information. No news. No social media. Nothing you didn't consciously choose. Just 1 hour. And watch what happens. At first, your mind will protest. It'll beg for stimulation. It'll try to convince you you're missing out, but if you hold the line, you'll realize you didn't miss anything. In fact, you gained something. Clarity. Train your attention like a muscle. Pick an object, anything, a cup, a plant, your hands, and just look at it while you breathe. Every time your mind drifts, gently bring it back. No judgment, just bring it back. That's training your inner guard. That's learning to direct your attention instead of letting it drag you around. And start setting boundaries in your conversations. Not from rejection, but from emotional hygiene. There are people who drain you every time you speak to them, not because they're bad, but because their energy doesn't match your peace. It's okay to limit that. It's okay to say, I need to protect my internal space. That's not selfish. That's emotional survival. How many thoughts could you have avoided yesterday if you had set a boundary? How much unnecessary anxiety? How much noise that was never yours to carry? Because most of the discomfort you feel doesn't actually belong to you. It's borrowed, adopted, something someone else dropped, and you picked up without realizing. Mingyur Rinpoche, a monk who also studies neuroscience, talks about joyful mind training. Not torture, not self-denial. Joyful. Because when you start cleaning your mind, when you start taking care of it, it doesn't feel like sacrifice. It feels like relief. Like breathing clean air after being trapped in a stuffy room. Like coming home after a heavy day. You know what's worse, my friend? That you don't even realize how polluted your mind is until you start cleaning it. You get so used to the noise, the chaos, the constant mess that you think it's normal. That this is just how life feels. That everyone must feel this way. But no, that's not normal. That's what happens after years of letting everything in without a filter. Seneca never stopped repeating this. The wise person guards their mind more than their body. Because the body can be in a prison and still be free. But if the mind is polluted, you're a prisoner no matter where you are. You could have all the luxury in the world, but if your mind is an uncomfortable place, your life will be uncomfortable too. Your mind is not a dumping ground, not a landfill, not a space where anyone can throw anything. It's your emotional home, the only place you'll live every second of your life. From the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep, every day, every year, your whole life. Make it a place worth living in. Make it a space where you actually want to be. Because if you can't be at peace in your own mind, there's no place in the world where you'll find true peace. Lesson 7. Love from abundance, not from need. Seneca spent entire afternoons writing letters to Lucilius. They weren't formal letters. They were deep conversations about how to live better. In one of them, he described something he saw constantly in Rome. People clinging to others in desperation. Marriages that were emotional prisons. Friendships built on fear of being alone. People who weren't loving. They were holding on. And Seneca asked, why would anyone choose to build their life on something as fragile as another person's need? Because when you love from lack, from emptiness, you're not sharing, you're begging. And that's not love. That's dependence in disguise. 2,000 years later, we're still doing the exact same thing. We enter relationships expecting someone to complete us, to fill our gaps, to give us the worth we deny ourselves, to rescue us from ourselves. And when that person can't meet those impossible expectations, we feel betrayed, abandoned, shattered. But the problem was never the other person. The problem was that we showed up empty, hoping someone else would fill us. Mariella talked about this on a tiny podcast barely anyone heard. After a devastating breakup, she sat down to figure out what had happened, and she realized something brutal. During the entire relationship, she had been asking constant attention, daily validation, affection in specific forms. She never felt enough. She always needed proof that she was loved. And months after the breakup, she said a sentence that changed everything. I realized I was asking someone to give me what I didn't give myself, not even a little bit. She was demanding to be valued while treating herself like trash, asking to be cared for while constantly neglecting herself, wanting to be chosen when she never really chose herself. That's loving from lack. It's showing up in a relationship with empty hands and outstretched arms, waiting, needing, demanding, and turning the other person into your emotional oxygen tank. If they reply fast, you breathe easy. If they don't, you suffocate. If they say something sweet, you float. If they say nothing, you sink. Your peace entirely in someone else's hands. Your worth dependent on how much they choose you. Your happiness tied to variables you don't control. Marcus Aurelius wrote something simple but devastating. Let your well-being depend on yourself. He didn't mean it from a cold, disconnected individualism. He meant it from freedom. Because if your emotional well-being depends on another person, you'll never be free. You'll live in constant anxiety, checking your phone every 2 minutes, reading into every gesture, searching for signs that you're still enough, feeling like every comment is an attack, every silence a rejection, every change abandonment. Ari Levinson, a small creator on TikTok, said it perfectly after going through therapy. He explained that all his relationship anxiety came from not having any inner life built. He was an empty shell waiting for someone else to fill him. And every relationship ended the same way, because no one can fill a void you haven't bothered to fill yourself. His words were powerful. Once I filled my own inner home, I stopped demanding others move into it. That's the difference. Loving from abundance means showing up whole. Not perfect, whole. It means you've done the work to know yourself, to care for yourself, to respect yourself. It means you've built a life you enjoy, even when you're alone. It means you've learned to give yourself the things you used to wait for others to provide. And from that place, from fullness, you choose to share with someone. Not because you need them, because you want to. Picture Epictetus noticing a young slave crying because he felt invisible, unappreciated. The boy had spent days trying to earn approval, doing everything to be liked and still felt unseen. Epictetus sits beside him, looks him in the eye, and says something that probably stung, but was true. If you seek your worth outside of you, you will never find it within. You could travel the world chasing someone to tell you you're valuable, but unless you believe it yourself, their words will be hollow. Because that's what happens. Someone can tell you every day that you're amazing, but if you don't believe it, you won't feel it. Their words bounce off, they don't land. Because the emptiness inside you doesn't get filled with someone else's words. It gets filled with your own work, with self-awareness, with self-care, with treating yourself like someone you actually love. So how do you start doing that? Start by giving yourself what you've always waited for. If you want someone to listen to you, listen to yourself. Spend time understanding what you feel, what you need, what hurts. If you want someone to take care of you, take care of yourself. Rest when you need to, eat well, sleep enough, do things that nourish you. If you want respect, respect yourself. Don't betray yourself. Don't accept treatment that harms you. Don't speak to yourself like you're your enemy. There's something in modern psychology called responsive self-talk. It's simple. When the thought, "Why haven't they messaged me?" pops up, instead of spiraling in anxiety and waiting for someone else to calm you down, you respond to yourself. Maybe they're busy, or maybe not. But my worth isn't tied to their reply. I'm okay. with or without that message. It's not self-deception, it's emotional responsibility. It's pulling your peace back into your own hands. And when you start doing that, when you begin to build that internal abundance, your relationships change completely. You no longer choose from desperation. You no longer stay in places that hurt you because you're scared of being alone. You no longer accept crumbs because your self-esteem is so low you think that's the best you can get. You start choosing from clarity, from strength, from a place where being alone isn't a threat, it's a valid option. Abundant love allows healthy boundaries, because when you don't depend emotionally on someone, you can say what you need without fear that they'll leave. You can have honest conversations without feeling like your survival is on the line. You can ask. You can say no. You can be yourself without performing to keep someone's love. Abundant love also allows peace. Not the toxic calm of, I don't care about anything, but the calm that comes from knowing, if this person leaves, if this relationship ends, I'll still be okay. Because my well-being doesn't depend on them. I enjoy their company. I value their presence. I care deeply, but I don't need them to survive emotionally. Seneca kept telling Lucilius this: the wise love deeply, but without attachment. Not because they're cold, because they understand that true love isn't possession. It isn't need. It's shared freedom. It's choosing to walk together from wholeness, not from emptiness. It's building something beautiful without the pressure of that thing being the only thing keeping you alive. And here's the most liberating part, my friend. When you love from abundance, you stop needing guarantees. You stop begging for promises that they'll never leave. You stop trying to force absolute safety in something as unpredictable as another human being. Affection flows. It isn't begged for, it isn't demanded, it isn't chased with anxiety. It simply is. And if one day it ends, it hurts. Of course it hurts. But it doesn't break you. Because you remain whole. Because you built your own home before inviting someone to live in it with you. This doesn't mean you don't need anyone. Humans are social. We need connection. We need love. We need community. But there's a huge difference between needing human connection in general and needing one specific person to feel valid. Between enjoying someone's presence and relying on it to not fall apart. Between loving deeply and clinging desperately. The Stoics weren't robots without feelings. They loved. They had families, friendships, deep relationships. But they loved from a place of inner strength. They didn't trade peace for company. They didn't sell their dignity just to avoid loneliness. They built their internal house first. And from there, they invited others to share in it. Lesson 8. Happiness is a daily decision. Think of your mind like an operating system that resets every morning. If you don't choose which apps open first, the day will choose for you. You wake up, and in the first 5 seconds, your brain starts loading. Worries, to-dos, that comment from yesterday that stung, the awkward meeting ahead, that one problem you still haven't figured out. And if you don't intervene, if you just let autopilot kick in, those thoughts will run your entire day. Marcus Aurelius understood this. Every morning before stepping into the chaos of running an empire, he chose how to begin his day. He didn't wait to see how he felt. He didn't let the mood of the day choose his mindset. He chose it, deliberately, like picking what to wear, because he understood something essential. If you don't decide, your mind will default to its usual settings, and default mode is usually the most negative. Your alarm goes off. You open your eyes with that automatic thought, ugh, here we go again. That's where the Stoic lesson starts. Right there. Because that moment is a crossroads. You can let autopilot drag you through the day like a victim of your circumstances. Or you can do what Epictetus taught. Ask yourself what kind of attitude a free person would choose today. Not a person with a perfect life, a free person. Someone who understands that while they can't control everything that happens, they can control how they face it. Loba Digital, a small Twitch streamer, once shared something simple but powerful. For months, she woke up angry. At life, at herself, at everything. Every morning felt like a fight, until she tried something ridiculously simple. 30 seconds of gratitude before getting out of bed. Just 30 seconds thinking of 3 things she appreciated: her warm bed, her morning coffee, her cat who was annoying but lovable. Nothing deep, nothing mystical, just 30 seconds redirecting her attention. And she said it best: "I didn't expect life to change. I just changed how I greeted the day." And it worked. Not because gratitude is some magical fix, but because she was training her brain to look for the good before the bad flooded in. She was choosing the first app to open in her mental system. Modern neuroscience backs up what the Stoics practiced centuries ago. Your brain has neuroplasticity. It rewires itself based on repetition. The thoughts you choose each morning are like paving roads in your brain. If every day starts with complaints, you're paving the path of complaint. That path becomes automatic, easier to walk. Your brain just goes there by default. But if you start your day intentionally, you're paving a new path, the one of agency, of personal power, of freedom. Epictetus said it clearly: it's not what happens to you that affects you, it's how you choose to see it. 2 people can live the exact same day, same job, same weather, same problems. One ends the day exhausted, the other at peace. Not because life was easier for one of them, but because they chose a different mindset. Picture this. Scene 1. Someone starts their day scrolling on their phone while still in bed. Social media, news, messages. Within 5 minutes, they've seen 3 fake perfect lives, 2 scary headlines, and 1 work message that already triggers anxiety. They haven't even gotten up, and their mind is already in survival mode. Restless, overwhelmed, comparing, feeling like the day is already too much. That tiny choice, to look at their phone first, just made the entire day harder. Scene 2. Someone opens their eyes, breathes deeply for 30 seconds, and says a simple phrase: "Today I choose my attitude." They get up, make their bed, have a coffee, no screens. In 10 minutes, they've created a calm space to face whatever the day brings. Same life, same job, same problems. Entirely different experience. Marcus Aurelius had a morning habit that sounds odd, but was brilliant. He would mentally go over the worst that could happen that day, not to stress himself out, but to train his peace. If the worst happened, he was already mentally prepared. If it didn't, bonus. But above all, it reminded him that his calm didn't depend on things going right. It depended on how he handled whatever came. Seneca asked himself something similar. What attitude would I choose if today were my last day? Not from fear, but from clarity. If you knew today was your last, would you waste time complaining about traffic? Would you get upset because someone didn't reply to a message? Would you spend your energy on things that don't matter? Probably not. You'd probably be present, grateful, enjoy the little things, love freely. So why not choose that today? You don't have to wait for a terminal diagnosis to live more fully. You can choose it now, this morning, this moment. You can't control the weather of your day, but you can choose the emotional coat you wear. You can't control whether you'll face a tough boss, a traffic jam, or a bad piece of news. But you can choose whether those things define you or simply pass through you. Because happiness isn't the absence of problems. It's the skill of not turning every problem into a personal crisis. Here's something practical, a 20-second Stoic ritual. Before getting out of bed, say to yourself, out loud or silently, "Today, I choose my attitude." That's it. It sounds silly, but it's powerful. It's an anchor. A reminder that you're not just drifting, that you have agency, that even if many things aren't in your control, your mindset always is. Or think of your mind like a suitcase before heading out. What are you packing today? Anxiety, gratitude, resentment, curiosity, fear, calm. Not all those feelings will disappear just because you ignore them, but you can choose which ones get the most space, which ones lead the way. Choose one thought to carry with you today. Not 20, just one. Something simple. Today I respond with calm. Today I appreciate what I have. Today I take nothing personally, just one thought. And when the day gets messy, come back to it. Like a lighthouse, a reminder of the person you chose to be today. And before you react to anything, ask yourself, which version of me is choosing this? The reactive version that runs on impulse, or the conscious one that responds with intention? It's a basic cognitive technique, but it creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space lives your freedom, because happiness isn't something you find one day and then you're set for life. It's not a destination where you arrive and unpack forever. It's a daily practice, a decision you make every morning, every hour if necessary, every time something goes wrong and you have to choose how you'll respond. Happiness doesn't show up when everything's perfect. It shows up when you stop turning imperfection into a prison. When you stop waiting for life to change so you can feel okay. When you realize that feeling okay is something you practice, not something you're handed. And that practice, my friend, is the difference between being at the mercy of life and living from your own center, from your own strength, from your own inner freedom. Lesson 9. When you change on the inside, everything on the outside changes. Imagine waking up one morning with the feeling that something inside you has shifted, like a small gear that had been stuck for years finally clicked into place. Nothing outside has changed. Same job, same unread messages, same routine, but somehow you're seeing everything differently. Marcus Aurelius used to say that a person's life is shaped by their thoughts. And in that sentence, there's a truth most people avoid facing. Your external world only starts to shift when your way of seeing it does. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. How many times have you tried to fix your life by changing things on the outside, when the real adjustment needed to happen inside? You moved to another city hoping it would make you feel better. Switched jobs, thinking this one would finally bring happiness. Started a new relationship expecting that person to give you what you've always needed. And after the initial excitement, the same feeling came back. Because you brought the same mindset with you, the same fears, the same insecurities, the same stories you've been telling yourself. There's a lesser-known study from Leiden University about focused attention. They found that when people train their minds to pay attention to certain patterns, they start noticing them more in everyday life. Not because they suddenly appear, but because the brain is finally paying attention. Like when you buy a car and suddenly see that same model everywhere. It was always there, you just hadn't been looking. The same thing happens with happiness. When you cultivate peace, clarity, and strength inside, you start noticing opportunities where before you only saw problems. When you're constantly in a rush and mentally tangled, life feels overwhelming. Every conversation feels like a threat. Every change, a danger, every silence, rejection. But once you start untangling that mess, without needing anything outside to change, things begin to feel easier, smaller, less dramatic. Think about something simple. You're at the supermarket. Before, it would annoy you when the person ahead took too long to pay. You'd tense up, check the time, curse under your breath. But today, after doing some internal work, you wait calmly, maybe even smile. The situation is exactly the same. The person still takes the same amount of time, but you are no longer the same. You used to see traffic as if the universe was out to get you. Now it's just part of the road. A moment to pause, to breathe, to reconnect with yourself. Reality didn't change. You did. Let me tell you about Raymond. He lived in Toronto and suffered from panic attacks so intense he couldn't take the subway. His entire life was shaped around avoiding that fear. Longer routes, extra money spent on taxis, making up excuses. He was trapped by his own mind. But after months of cognitive therapy, he started using a simple Stoic practice inspired by Epictetus. Every morning he repeated to himself, "Nothing external can affect what I've already chosen to be on the inside." The panic didn't magically go away. The subway still made him anxious. His body still reacted. But something had changed. He stopped running from the fear. He breathed through it. He stopped identifying with it. He stopped seeing the subway as the problem and understood that it was how he was interpreting it. Eventually, he got back on, not because the subway had changed, but because he had. This is the essence of Stoicism. The challenges remain. Life is still unpredictable. People still act out. But you stop experiencing them in the same way. They don't crush you anymore. They don't throw you off balance. Because you've built something strong enough inside that doesn't depend on everything outside being perfect. Epictetus put it simply, you can't control the arrival of a storm, but you can control how you prepare for it. You can sit and cry because it's going to rain, or you can bring a coat and an umbrella. The storm comes either way, but your experience of it changes completely. Marcus Aurelius didn't ask the gods to change reality. He asked for the strength to interpret it better, to face it with dignity, to stop turning every difficulty into a personal tragedy. You can apply the same idea. When you change from the inside, your choices shift. If you've been feeling tension at work, at home, or in your relationships, try this. Tomorrow, choose to respond to just one situation with a calmer version of yourself. Just one. See what happens. Watch how it changes the energy, how the conversation shifts, how even the other person reacts differently. That small action done consistently starts to change everything. People can sense your energy. They don't always understand it consciously, but they feel it. If you show up tense, expecting a fight, people pick up on it. If you show up grounded, calm, without needing to prove anything, people respond to that too. Here's another powerful shift. Observe one of your reactions every day that you'd like to handle differently. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just ask yourself, why did I react that way? What was I afraid of? What button got pushed? That kind of awareness is already a massive change, because you can't improve something you can't see. And most of the time, we're reacting automatically, without ever understanding why. Try this exercise. Choose a word for your month. Just one. Patience, focus, peace, strength, whatever you need. That one word will start shaping your attention, like setting the lens on a camera. The scene doesn't change, but you see it more clearly. You'll start spotting chances to practice that word. If it's patience, you'll see how many situations are testing it. If it's presence, you'll notice every time your mind drifts away. Seneca repeated this again and again. Don't wait for the world around you to change before you do the work inside. You can have the perfect job and still feel stuck, the perfect relationship and still feel unloved, the perfect life and still feel like something's missing. Because what's missing isn't outside, it's inside. And until you work on that, nothing you achieve out there will feel enough. But when you really shift the way you see, interpret, and respond to the world, everything transforms. Not because the world suddenly becomes easy, but because it stops feeling so heavy. The same things that used to break you now just challenge you. The same comments that used to hurt you now roll off. The same losses that once left you frozen still hurt, but they don't destroy you. And people notice. Your energy changes. Your presence changes. You stop walking into rooms with emotional hunger. You stop needing others to validate you. You stop overreacting to every little thing. You stop getting dragged into unnecessary conflict. That's stability. It draws people in. It brings new opportunities. It invites peace. It's not magic. It's not blind optimism. It's simply this. You've finally taken charge of yourself. You're no longer at the mercy of what's happening around you. You've built something on the inside that can hold its ground, no matter what's happening on the outside. And from there, from that foundation, you can build anything. But first comes the inner work. Always. Because when you change inside, everything on the outside changes. Not because the world is different, but because you move through it in a different way. And that shift changes everything. Now I'm going to ask you something bold. If you feel like you're at a point in your life where you don't want to keep reacting the same way, leave a comment saying, "I'm starting to change from within." It's a simple sentence, but for the person who decides to write it, it marks a turning point. Lesson 10. Happiness is something you train by practicing it. Can you imagine Epictetus as a young man, still a slave, no physical freedom, no property, nothing the world considers valuable? He gets up earlier than everyone else in the house to do something nobody understands. He sits in silence for a few minutes, breathes, and mentally repeats how he wants to behave that day, what virtues he will practice, how he'll respond if someone humiliates him, how he'll keep his peace if the day gets hard. He did this every morning, not because it was easy, not because he felt like it, but because he understood something fundamental. Without daily practice, his mind would scatter toward every external stimulus. He'd become a leaf in the wind, someone who only reacts, never chooses. That little ritual is proof that inner happiness was never about theory. It was always about training, and you can do the same. Even if you're not a first-century philosopher, even if you don't have free time, even if your life is chaotic. Today, psychology has a term called micro-practices of emotional regulation. It refers to things that last less than a minute, but, when repeated, literally change how you respond to life. It was studied at Duke University. They saw how a repeated mental habit modifies neural connections. It's not magic, it's biology. Your brain reorganizes based on what you practice. If you practice anxiety, you become anxious. If you practice calm, you become calm. That's straightforward. The foundation is exactly the same as what the Stoics taught 2,000 years ago. Don't wait to feel good in order to act well. Act well, and you'll end up feeling better. The order matters, because if you wait until you feel motivated to exercise, you never will. If you wait to feel happy before being kind, you'll never be kind. But if you work out without wanting to, the motivation follows. If you're kind without feeling like it, the feeling follows the action. Think about something you do every day. Opening your phone first thing in the morning. That moment, barely 3 seconds long, is already training your mind without you realizing it. You're training urgency, comparison, rush, anxiety. This isn't a lecture, it's just reality. That first move of the day is teaching your brain how to operate for the rest of the day. But if in those same 3 seconds you do something different, if you say, wait, take a deep breath, and say a simple phrase like, I choose the pace, you're training something else. Calm, presence, ownership of your day. See the contrast? It's not what you do, it's how you do it, and how many times you repeat it. Now let me tell you something that appears in an old Japanese legend about an archer named Shibata Katsui. He wasn't the strongest or the fastest. In fact, at first he was mediocre, missed more arrows than he hit. But he had a strange habit. Before training, he wouldn't touch the bow right away. He spent several minutes just adjusting his breath, observing the string, feeling the weight of the arrow, and silently reminding himself of the intention of the day. Today I train my mind, not my aim. That ritual was so odd. Other warriors laughed at him, but over time he became the best archer in the clan. When asked how he did it, he said something that perfectly fits Stoicism. My bow only hits when my mind hits first. His practice wasn't shooting arrows. It was training presence, calm, intention. The arrow was just the result of that inner practice. And there's your lesson. Happiness works exactly the same way. It doesn't come after something big, it comes after something small. Seneca used to say that consistency beats what reason alone cannot. He wasn't talking about rigid discipline. He wasn't talking about punishing yourself. He was talking about repeating small things that hold you up, even when you don't feel like it. Because most days you won't feel like it. Most days you'll want to stay in bed. You'll want to skip your practice. You'll want to give up. And that's where consistency makes the difference. Marcus Aurelius didn't meditate to inspire anyone. He meditated because he knew the mind needs daily direction, just like the body needs daily movement. If you don't move your body, it atrophies. If you don't guide your mind, it scatters. It fills with junk. It becomes a chaotic, unlivable place. But if you train it, if you guide it each day, even just 5 minutes. It grows stronger, calmer. It becomes your ally instead of your enemy. If you're looking to train your happiness, you can start with something quiet. Choose a phrase to carry with you in the mornings. Marcus Aurelius did this without calling it an affirmation, without making it spiritual. He simply picked a thought to guide him that day. Today, I will act with patience. Today, I won't take things personally. Today, I'll remember that most things don't matter as much as I think. One phrase, and he carried it like an anchor. You can also train happiness by taking just 1 minute a day to review an emotion you didn't like. Not to judge it, to observe it. Why did it show up? What triggered it? What need was behind it? Just observing already creates distance. It pulls you out of reactive mode. It makes you a witness of your mind instead of a victim of it. Or you can train it by choosing to respond kindly in just one tense situation a day. Just one. Not all of them. One. That moment where you usually get irritated, where you usually get defensive, where you usually explode. Choose a kind response, not from submission, from strength, from the understanding that you don't have to fight every battle. That single choice, repeated for weeks, changes your entire temperament. Epictetus knew this. That's why he practiced every morning. That's why he mentally rehearsed his responses. That's why he trained his mind like an athlete trains the body. Because he understood that virtue isn't something you have or don't have. It's something you practice, that you refine, that you strengthen through repetition. Patience doesn't appear magically. It's trained by being patient when you don't feel like it. Calm doesn't arrive on its own. It's trained by choosing calm when everything pushes you to be anxious. Gratitude isn't a personality trait. It's a practice. A conscious decision to look for what's valuable instead of what's wrong. And it won't always go well. There will be days you fail. When you react badly. When you lose your patience. When you forget your practice. That's normal. That's being human. The Stoics weren't perfect. They failed constantly. Marcus Aurelius wrote reminders of basic things because he forgot them. Seneca admitted his contradictions. Epictetus acknowledged his struggles. But they kept practicing, they kept training, they kept choosing to try again. Because that's what makes the difference. Not perfection, consistency, not doing everything right, getting back to it after failing. Waking up each morning and deciding that today you'll practice again. That today you'll train your peace, your calm, your strength. Even if it's just for 5 minutes. Even if it's just one conscious moment in the entire day. Don't wait for a sign from the universe. Don't wait for the perfect day. Don't wait to feel inspired. Happiness doesn't show up when everything falls into place. It shows up when you train your mind to stay calm, even when nothing is perfect. The practice is the path, and the more you repeat it, the more natural it becomes. More automatic, more a part of you. Until one day you realize something. You're no longer pretending to be okay. You're no longer forcing calm. You're no longer acting peaceful. You built it. You trained it so much that now it's part of who you are. And that version of you, the trained, strengthened, practiced version, is the one that can go through anything without breaking. That's the one that finally discovered the secret. Inner happiness was never a destination. It was always a daily practice. And now, my friend, you no longer need anyone else to find it, because you carry it with you, wherever you go. Lesson 11. Don't negotiate your peace with anyone. How many times in your life have you let someone walk in and wreck your peace just because you didn't want to make things awkward? Think about it carefully. How many times have you let a toxic conversation ruin your day? How many times have you tolerated hurtful comments because they're family or they've always been my friend? How many times have you accepted behavior that tore you up inside just so you wouldn't be the bad guy? And all the while, your inner peace was breaking apart, piece by piece, conversation by conversation, concession by concession. Epictetus said it bluntly. If you hand over your mind to others, they will live inside it, and they'll live there rent-free, taking up space that belongs to you, filling your head with noise, robbing you of clarity, robbing you of rest, robbing you of the chance to be at peace with yourself. Because you let them cross a boundary that should have never been up for negotiation, your emotional center. That sacred place where you decide what affects you and what doesn't. That space that belongs only to you. Peace is like a small flame. If you place it in the middle of a storm, it'll go out. But if you shield it with your hands, it grows, it lights, it warms. The Stoics spoke of the hegemonikon, the ruling center, the place from which you govern your mind. And that center isn't something abstract. It's real. It's your ability to keep your peace even when everything around you is chaos. But you can only keep it if you protect it, if you don't negotiate it, if you don't hand it over in little pieces just to keep others happy. Now picture this, it's Thursday evening. You're exhausted after a non-stop day. Your head is spinning. Your body just wants a bit of silence, a hot shower, a moment to exist without pressure. You're about to walk into your house when your phone rings. It's a close friend. You care about them? You really do. But you also know that when they call at this hour, something's up. You sigh. You answer. They say, "Hey, could you do me a huge favor? Can you come help me with something real quick? I swear it'll only take a minute." And you know it won't take a minute. You know it'll drain your whole evening. You know you'll get home late with no energy, no time for yourself. You know your peace, that peace you've been trying to protect all week, is about to go right out the window. And still, you answer, "Sure, no problem." You say it almost without thinking, as if your mouth answered before your emotional dignity had a chance to speak. And as soon as you hang up, that weight appears in your chest, that mix of frustration and guilt, not because of your friend, but because of you. Because you know the truth. You didn't want to do it. You couldn't. It wasn't the right moment. But you said yes because you were afraid of what they'd think. Because you didn't want to seem selfish. Because you chose to sacrifice your well-being instead of sitting with the discomfort of setting a boundary. And there goes your peace. Right there. No resistance. Handed over like it meant nothing. As you drive to their house, your mind starts negotiating with itself. You tell yourself it's okay, it's not a big deal. That's what friends are for. But deep down, you know it's not true. You know that feeling isn't about the favor, it's about the internal betrayal. You crossed a boundary that needed defending. You let someone into a space that no one else should decide over but you. The Stoics would have raised an eyebrow here, because they were clear about something we often forget. No one deserves access to your peace unless you've given it from a place of consciousness. Not out of fear, not out of guilt, not out of the need to be liked, but out of a free choice. Seneca used to say that whoever lives to please others lives in chains. And he was right, because when you place others' approval above your own tranquility, you lose your freedom. You become a slave to expectations, to opinions, to judgments. You live in constant tension, weighing every word, every gesture, every decision, wondering if it was enough, if you kept everyone happy, if they'll still like you. But inner peace doesn't work that way. You can't keep it if your priority is to please everyone, because there will always be someone who's unhappy, someone who wants more, someone who judges you, criticizes you, wants you to change. And if you give up your peace every time someone applies pressure, you'll never have peace at all. The Stoics spoke of the inner circle, a zone that no one else should manage. Your peace is inside that circle. So are your values, your dignity, your mental health. And that circle has to be impenetrable, not because you're cold, but because you're wise. Because you understand that if you let anyone come in and throw off your balance, you'll live in permanent chaos. Marcus Aurelius wrote about keeping the mind unshaken, not cold, firm, like a rock in the middle of the sea. The waves can crash, they can surround it, they can roar, but the rock remains, because it doesn't negotiate its solidity with the waves. It doesn't bend to external chaos. It stays centered, steady, at peace. You're in the kitchen, it's Monday, you haven't slept well, and suddenly that message arrives, the one that tightens your chest. Nothing dramatic is written, but you already know drama's coming. You know this person is going to try to pull you into their conflict, and this is where you choose. Are you going to let it in? Will you let that message ruin your morning? Or are you going to protect your peace? Next time someone speaks to you from a place of conflict, ask yourself if that battle is truly yours, or if they're just inviting you to fight. Because a lot of people go through life recruiting soldiers for their personal wars. They want you to get angry with them, to get involved in their drama, to carry their resentment, and if you accept, you end up fighting battles that were never yours to begin with, destroying your peace over someone else's problems. Here's a simple but powerful practice. When you feel a situation draining your energy, touch your chest and repeat, "This is not mine." It's a mental anchor. The Stoics used similar anchors, short phrases to bring them back to center when the world tried to pull them out of it. "This is not mine" reminds you that you don't have to carry every emotion someone else drops near you, that you can observe without absorbing, that you can be present without becoming polluted. Because there's a huge difference between empathy and emotional absorption. Empathy lets you understand others without losing your center. Absorption makes you carry everything the other person feels, and that destroys you, turns you into an emotional sponge, a dumping ground for others' problems, someone who's always exhausted from managing emotions that don't belong to them. Epictetus taught this to his students. He said, "Protect your center like you protect your home. Don't let just anyone in. Don't open the door to everything. Be selective, because once chaos enters, it's much harder to get it out. And in the meantime, you can't even live peacefully in your own mind, because it's occupied by emotional invaders. Don't negotiate your peace. Don't sell it cheap to avoid discomfort. Don't hand it over just to avoid conflict. Don't sacrifice it on the altar of approval, because when you lose your peace, you lose your clarity. You lose your ability to make good decisions. You lose your connection with yourself. You lose the only thing that is truly yours. It's not about being cold. It's about being sovereign, about placing your calm above the noise, about understanding that there are things that don't deserve even a second of your tranquility. Toxic conversations, destructive relationships, manufactured drama, pointless conflicts. All of that can exist, but it doesn't have to exist inside you. That's the true Stoic strength, that no one can enter unless you open the door, that your peace is yours, protected, sacred. And when someone tries to negotiate it, you simply say, "This is not for sale. It never was. It never will be." But protecting your peace is only part of the equation. You also need to live in alignment with who you truly are, because there is no real peace when you betray yourself every day. So stick around, because what comes next is the true secret to happiness. Lesson 12. Live in alignment with who you truly are. Picture Marcus Aurelius writing in his journal after a brutal day of ruling an empire. Political battles, betrayals, impossible decisions. And there he is, reminding himself that he must live according to what he believes is right. Even as emperor, even when everyone expects something else, even when it would be easier to give in, he was his own measure, not the world, not the expectations, not the external pressures, himself. Now look at yourself. How many times do you say yes when you want to say no? How many times do you smile to keep the peace while screaming on the inside? How many times do you act one way in public and another when you're alone? How many times do you betray what you really believe just because going along with others is easier? And each time you do, something inside you cracks a little. Because living out of alignment is like wearing a shirt that's 2 sizes too small. You can tolerate it for a while. You can pretend it's fine, but eventually, you can't breathe. Yasmin Seeley spent years living a borrowed life, studying for a degree she didn't want because it was what was expected of her, dating people who didn't match her because they fit the image she thought she had to project, presenting a persona online that had nothing to do with who she really was. And every day she felt more anxious, more empty, more disconnected from herself, until one day she realized something brutal. Her anxiety wasn't because life was hard. It was because it wasn't her life. In a video that went viral, she shared how everything changed the day she decided to be honest about who she truly was. She dropped out of her program, ended relationships that didn't make her happy, started showing her real personality on social media, and the anxiety vanished. Not because her life became perfect, but because for the first time, it was her life. Not the edited version, not the version others approved of, hers. Epictetus would correct his students by asking them something very simple. Does what you say match what you do? Because to him, coherence was the root of freedom. You can say you value honesty, but if you lie all the time, you're out of alignment. You can say you care about your health, but if you destroy yourself daily, there's incoherence. You can say you want peace, but if you constantly seek drama, there's a contradiction. And that contradiction destroys you. It creates constant mental noise, a kind of cognitive dissonance that keeps you from resting. Because part of you knows the truth. It knows who you really are. It knows what you want. It knows what's right and wrong for you. But another part is acting against that truth. And the conflict between those two parts drains you more than any physical labor ever could. Seneca said that peace of soul comes from living without internal contradiction. And he was right. You can't be at peace if you betray yourself a little more every day. If you say one thing and do another. If your outer behavior contradicts your inner feelings. If you sell out your values for convenience. If you sacrifice your authenticity for approval. Imagine you're invited to an event you don't want to go to, and you say yes, but then you complain about it all day. You show up in a bad mood, you don't enjoy it, you don't relax, you go home irritated. That emotional exhaustion didn't come from the event. It came from the misalignment, from saying yes when you wanted to say no, from betraying your truth to avoid discomfort. And in the end, you don't enjoy it or rest. A double loss. Ellen Langer, a pioneer in mindfulness psychology, discovered something fascinating. Acting against your values produces what she called cognitive wear, a kind of mental static that blocks creativity, calm, and clarity. Your brain has to use extra energy to sustain the lie, to hold up the mask, to remember what version of yourself you showed to whom. And that energy is exactly what you need for other things, like thinking, creating, or being fully present. But when you live in alignment, all that energy gets released. You don't have to remember what you said, because you're always telling the truth. You don't have to act, because you're just being. You don't have to carry the guilt of betraying yourself. You don't have to live with the weight of pretending to be someone you're not. Next time you're caught between speaking your truth or pleasing someone, ask yourself, which option makes me feel clean inside? Not which one makes me look better, not which is easier. Which one leaves me at peace with myself? Because that's the only measure that matters, the only one that helps you sleep well, the only one that doesn't come with that slow, lingering sense of self-betrayal. You could take 5 minutes a day to review 3 decisions and ask, do these align with the person I want to be? Not the person others expect, but the one you want to be. Because that's the key. You can't live your life trying to fulfill someone else's expectations. You'll end up frustrated, resentful, hollow. But if you live by your own values, even if it's hard, even if it upsets others, there's an inner peace that nothing else can match. Marcus Aurelius constantly faced pressure to act in ways that violated his principles. The Senate expected one thing, the generals another. The people had their own demands, and he could have given in. He could have done what was convenient. But he chose coherence. He chose to act in line with what he believed was right, even if it was more complicated. Because he understood that losing your coherence is losing yourself. You don't need perfection. You need alignment. When you live in coherence with yourself, everything feels lighter. Guilt fades because there's nothing to regret. Doubt quiets down because you know exactly who you are and what you stand for. And best of all, you stop needing external approval because you've already got your own. You know you're acting from your truth, and that's enough. Living in coherence doesn't mean being inflexible. It means having clarity about your core values and refusing to bargain with them. You can adapt. You can learn. You can change your mind when new evidence justifies it. But there are things you don't negotiate. Your dignity, your honesty, your self-respect, your basic boundaries. These are your spine, and if you bend them under pressure, you'll eventually break. Seneca lived this firsthand. He worked under Nero, a tyrant, and he constantly had to decide where to draw the line, when to give in for practicality, and when to stand firm. And while he wasn't perfect, he always tried to live by his principles. He always tried to maintain the inner coherence that allowed him to look in the mirror without contempt. You can do the same. Every day, every decision, every conversation. Asking yourself, does what I'm about to do match the person I want to be? And if the answer is no, you've got two choices: change your action or change your values. But you can't live in the middle. You can't say you value something and act against it, because that contradiction will destroy you from the inside, slowly, quietly, but surely. The inner happiness you're looking for doesn't come from having more. It comes from being who you really are, without apology, without masks, without edited versions for different audiences. It comes from that deep alignment between what you think, what you say, and what you do. And when you achieve that, when you live in full coherence with yourself, you'll discover something extraordinary. You don't need anyone else to feel whole. Because at last, you are whole, integrated, aligned. And that, my friend, is the final secret of inner happiness. There's something you can no longer ignore. Inner happiness isn't a beautiful destination that one day shows up without warning. It's a way of living, a way of treating yourself. It's the daily decision not to abandon yourself, to listen to yourself, to respect yourself, and to return to yourself, even when the world keeps pulling you away. You've seen that peace doesn't come when people change, or when everything finally fits, or when life decides to smile at you. It comes when you decide to protect your mind, honor your boundaries, uphold your dignity, and take full responsibility for your own well-being. And when you do that, something unexpected happens. You no longer need anyone to complete you, because at last you are whole. You no longer seek to be rescued, because you no longer let yourself go. You no longer depend on external noise, because your refuge lives within. If you've made it this far, write in the comments, "Today I choose to be my own home." That tells me you're part of this community that doesn't give up. Subscribe and turn on the bell so we can walk this path of wisdom together. You've got more videos on screen waiting for you, because every step counts. Click now, and let's keep learning together.